Welcome back to Meet and Greet, my brothers and sisters of the Q. Welcome back. It's your favorite barbecue brother, nephew, uncle, cousin, comrade, family member, come on, or potentially it's your favorite barbecue stranger. If you are new to the channel, welcome. It's a pleasure having you. Today we're making a smoked brisket on a Weber Kettle grill, and I couldn't be more excited. This is a super simple, easy, approachable, consistent way to cook brisket, and I can't believe that I've never done a brisket on a Weber Kettle. So without further ado, let's jump into the video. Cue the intro, of course. Now, as many of you may or may not know, I own a 1,000-gallon offset smoker. I own a 500-gallon offset smoker that I hand-built. So collectively, that's 1,500 gallons of smoking capability. We got a couple Traegers, and we got smoking and cooking and grilling apparatuses. And why am I saying all this? I'm saying this because when I first started out barbecuing, actually before I started barbecuing, I started grilling. Far before I ever touched an offset smoker, I was cooking on a Weber Kettle. We all know it. It's just true, thorough backyard grilling, and you really can't beat it. And so for the purpose of this video, I thought, let me go back to my roots and just throw a brisket on the old Weber Kettle, show a really easy, approachable, like I said, process to cooking a jam up brisket. So that's what we're gonna do. And well, we have brisket, so let's get it trimmed up. And there you have it, folks. There's your brisket. Perfectly aerodynamic, nice and even all around. From here, my seasoning process is very simple. I use salt, pepper, and brisket booster. Marcus, what's brisket booster? Great question, friend. It's a proprietary rub that I made to do literally what the name says, boost the flavor of your brisket. And this is kosher salt, and this is 16 mesh ground black pepper. So my preferred ratio is I'll do a liberal coating of pepper, and then I'll do 75% brisket booster or whatever seasonal you can get your hands on, and then I'll do about 25% of this kosher salt. And there you have it, folks. That's going to be a really flavorful, salty brisket. I'm using a little bit more salt because I know later in the cook I'm gonna wrap in tallow. I'll show you that then. This is it. I'm just gonna let this sit for maybe 5 to 10 minutes while I set up my charcoal fire, and then we will be rocking and rolling. Let's get that fire set up. All right, so we're at the kettle grill, and I'm not gonna spend too much time talking about how I'm gonna set this thing up. I'm just gonna do the snake method. You could use a slow and sear if you have one. I don't have a slow and sear, so I'm just gonna create a nice thin layer, low to the bottom of this kettle grill, probably a double layer. I'll show you what that looks like, of just basic briquette charcoal. You could use lump. Lump gets a little hotter. Briquette burns just a little longer. So based on what your preference is, you can pick or choose. I'm gonna use lump because I just want a nice, slow, steady, consistent heat, and I'm just gonna snake these coals around. I'll light one end and it'll slowly burn. I'm hoping to get about 8 hours out of it, but we'll see. Let's set it up. That should do it. All right, the only other step in the process is if you guys are familiar with the slow and sear, it has a water trough. I don't have a slow and sear, nor do I have a water trough. I'm just gonna create a water trough. These are the Blackstone griddle grease drip pans, literally the Blackstone brand. And I'm going to set 2 of those right in the middle. And I'm gonna fill them up with water. And then we have a water trough. How cool is that? The last step of the process is I'm gonna take this chimney, put a handful of charcoal in there, not too much. I'm just gonna dump it on one side of the fire, not on top, not in the middle, just in one corner of the fire, just a few briquettes. And that's gonna slowly start to light this snake on fire. And then as far as wood flavoring is concerned, family, we got oak chunks. I'm not a huge wood chip fan. I wouldn't suggest wood chips. Unless you live in remote Anchorage, Alaska or something. You should be able to go to any general grocery store or hardware store or like an Academy or something of the likes and pick up some wood chunks. So these are post oak wood chunks. You can use anything that you want. I would suggest staying away from the mesquites if possible. It's just too much. It's too much of a confined environment for you to be pumping mesquite smoke into your brisket. But oak, cherry, apple, peach, whatever, you should be good. And then what I like to do is I like to put these just barely off the coals. That way they're not gonna totally combust. They'll kind of smolder themselves. I will put a couple of these chunks on the corners of the coals in the beginning because I want extreme amounts of smoke. I actually want these to kind of combust and pump off a bunch of smoke early on. We really only have like 4 to 6 hours for this brisket to take in max smoke. So we'll use this setup to our advantage and we'll put a couple in this dead zone. That way they'll smolder, and then we'll put a couple directly on the heat as well. I'll show you what that looks like once we get the fire going. But let me get this chimney lit. Let me get these water pans full. We'll get the grate on and I'll show you what it looks like once everything's rocking and rolling.
If you're enjoying the video so far and you've picked up a half a tip or God forbid a tip or 2, throw me a subscription if you don't mind.
Okie doke, folks. I have this chimney. You can see there's just about that much charcoal. I don't know, maybe 8, 10 pieces, something like that. We lost one victim to the water. All right, we got it on. I'm just going to rearrange this because I've knocked some things over, but that's totally fine. All right, guys, that should do it. Awesome. This looks good. All right, so we got our brisket on. This is the Mohawk side facing the fire. I'm sure I'll rotate this throughout the duration of the cook, but as far as starting this cookout, I have this brisket moved as far away from the fire as I can get it, with the Mohawk facing the heat. And then as far as baffles are concerned, I have the lower kettle baffles, meaning the baffles at the very bottom of the kettle, a quarter of the way closed, and I have this baffle closed halfway. Now from here, all I want is for this kettle grill to slowly come up to temps. I mean, it won't take that long because it's such a small cooking space. It's 12 o'clock on the dot, so we will have a really good measure of how long this takes. I am projecting 10 hours because I don't think I'll get lucky enough for it to cook sooner, but we shall see. All right, friends, I'm gonna let this roll for about 2 hours before I do anything. I have a meter probe that Traeger actually gave it to me. I have a meter probe. I've never used it, but I'm gonna use it. It measures internal temp and it also measures ambient temperature on the other end. So in about 2 hours, I'm gonna insert that meter probe right in the middle of the brisket, and then we'll start reading temperatures, but I'm pretty confident that over the next hour, we should be pretty good. See you guys a little bit. 6 hours into our brisket, and it is looking magnificent. I'm gonna try to keep this talking section right here as quick as I can because this fire is just, the fire is on fire. It is really burning, one, because there's a piece of oak. There's an oak chunk right there. And then also it's getting hit with all of this oxygen, and the oxygen is just feeding this fire, so I'm going to keep it quick. Guys, we're actually on the dot. It's 6 hours and 25 minutes, so 6.5 hours on the dot, and the brisket is temping 180 degrees right where the point meets the flat. You can see this little black nub stepping up. That's the meter probe. The top is reading the ambient temperature. I've been averaging, if I had to guess, about 225 to 250 degrees. I've been averaging that. The cool thing about the meter probe is that it gives me a chart for my temperature, so if I'm wrong, I can go back and actually read the chart hour by hour. That's neither here nor there. The point is, The internal temperature right here in the middle of the brisket is reading 179 degrees on the dot. Now, I'm a big proponent, guys, I'm a big proponent of wrapping briskets directly after the stall. I think the sweet spot for me, in my opinion, in my experience, is 175 degrees internal. I could wrap this if that's what I wanted to do. I will not wrap this. I'm just gonna take this all the way. I don't have my spritz bottle. It broke. It is what it is. I have a link to my preferred hog sprayer in the description of the video, so I need to go buy another one. I don't have that. I don't have any spritz bottle laying around, but I do have the old Midwestern Bush Latte. So I'm going to just pour this like I have been around the edges just to cool it down. And I've been pouring this beer all over the point just to keep this nice and cool. I don't want to overcook or burn this brisket. Now guys, if you have pooling on your brisket, which I don't, luckily it's all draining because of the trim, but if I had pooling, I would just be careful to not pour this beer directly in the pool. So 6.5 hours in, I have rotated my brisket so it was facing the other way. I just turned it 180 degrees around. I'm facing the other side towards the fire, and I'm gonna put this lid back on and quit running my yap. Heat and temperature wise, I have only had to add charcoal once. I did it at around the 4-hour mark, and for 95% of the cook, I've ran the bottom baffle wide open, the top baffle at half. I just want to trap all that heat in there. We push past the stall, we're temping 179, 180. We're getting close to finishing temps. I really want to render this fat. We have got to render the fat, guys. Not just the topical fat. Again, I talk about it in my brisket masterclass if you want to check that out. It's like an hour and a half long, just Nerdville brisket video. But rendering fat, specifically the intermuscular fat, really happens later in the cook, like the last quarter of the cook, and I climb my temperatures. So in this cooker, I'm pushing 270, 275, 280, and I'm just gonna blast it. If I get too hot, I'll tint the edges of my brisket with foil. I'm not totally there yet. I've been giving it the old Bush Latte serenade, so I've just been pouring Bush on top of it to keep it from getting too hot, but I feel on my gut like I'm just gonna have to tint this thing with foil. 6.5 hours in, we're cranking, I'm pushing 270 plus degrees. I don't know how long it's gonna take. Again, the cook chamber's tiny. I mean, the heat is right there. We're not on my 1,000 gallon, we're not on my 500 gallon, that's for sure. And we're not even on my old Oklahoma Joe backyard smoker. The heat and the meat is right there. So I really need to be careful as I'm climbing these temperatures not to burn anything. And yeah, guys, I'll keep you posted. I'm rendering some beef tallow off to the side. We'll wrap in beef tallow later. The last thing I want to say is the following. At this point, I feel good about the bark that's happening. The bark is set. It's not as dark as I would get on my offset smoker, but that's fine. I actually like the color and the depth of the bark. At the 6-hour mark, post-stall, 175 degrees internal, you are clear to wrap in butcher paper if you wanted to, and then finish it in the oven. You could do that. I might do that later if something stalls out in a weird way here. I only got a tiny bit of charcoal left, so if I run out of charcoal, I might have to put it in the oven. But I want to tell you guys, rest assured, all you really need to do is cook this thing with smoky, good flavor for 6 hours, wrap it in your butcher paper, stick it in the oven, assuring that the internal temperature is 175 degrees internal. If you hit that mark, if you check those two boxes, bark is set, internal tip is 175, wrap it in your butcher paper, throw it in the oven, put a leave-in thermometer in there, and once that puppy temps 200, 203, 198, somewhere in there, it's probe tender, pull it out, rest it on the countertop, and eat it. Or put it in a warmer like I will. What's my point? My point is, at the 6-hour mark, guys, you don't have to leave it on the smoker or the kettle grill in this instance. You can pull it off. The brisket absorbed all the flavor it's gonna absorb. It's taken all the heat that it needs to take in the kettle grill. Go put it in the oven, crack a cold one, light a cigar, put something on Netflix, relax. Guys, we're talking backyard barbecue. We're not running a restaurant. We don't need to be super dialed 24/7. We can put this puppy in the oven, take a nice breather, relax, Wait till it hits a good 200 internal, and then we can eat it. All right, guys, I'll check back whenever. I don't know when, but we'll check back when the wind blows. So that doesn't make sense. We'll check back when the good Lord tells me to check back, and we'll go from there. Cheers. We are exactly 7 hours in, and it's 7:01. We got our brisket on at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't know if the mic's picking it up, but we got some sizzling and some crackling, and it's pretty hot in here. The ambient temperature, according to my meter probe, is about 300 degrees. That's too hot. Frankly, what's happening is this entire coal bed is just lit on fire. So what I did was I closed down the bottom vent about 3/4 of the way, and then I closed the dome damper, the damper on the dome of the lid. I closed that down about 3/4 of the way, and that helped a little bit, but it's also trapping a bunch of heat. So I'm just going to rotate and then tent the brisket. The brisket's temping at about 192 internal. And again, this is the meter probe. So right in the middle where the point meets the flat, it's temping 192. I like to pull brisket at about 195, maybe 198, max 200 degrees. I can't name the last time I pulled a brisket at 203 or whatever barbecue YouTube tells you. I don't pull it there. I pull it in the 190s, which is likely what I'll do here. And again, I'm feeling it. It doesn't really have the bend or the jiggle that I'm looking for. However, underneath the brisket on the lean side, it's feeling a little bit tender, and then on the point side, it's feeling even more tender. So I can tell that we're close. All right, so I'm just gonna leave the brisket like this until it's probe tender and or it hits about 198, 200, somewhere in there, and we'll rock and roll. Again, I got this vent closed down about 3/4 of the way. I got the bottom vent closed down the same way. We're 7 hours into our cook and we're almost done. Again, we have the meter app. As you can see, the internal temperature is 192 degrees and the ambient temperature is 240 degrees and climbing because I just put the lid on. This Weber doesn't have a thermometer in it, on it, or around it. So I figure let me use this cool little doohickey to measure the ambient temperature, and it also tells me what the internal temp is. So I'm looking for about 195, 198, somewhere in there. I'll come check it then. We'll see how it feels with my Thermapen. Best thermometer in the game, best instant read in the game. Truly, I got a link to that in the description. But I'll just feel around, see how it feels, and we'll pull it, wrap it in foil and tallow, and we'll get in the warmer. I'll see you guys in. It is exactly 8:12 on the dot. I got this brisket on at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and I pulled this brisket about 15, maybe 20 minutes ago. It cooked on the smoker every bit of 7.5 hours or thereabout. The smoker got very hot towards the end, which is okay. There are some points of the brisket that are crispy and borderline burnt, and underneath the brisket where I cut the decal out, it kind of flared out because it was so hot right on top of that heat. You can see right here is just nice, a little burnt, a little crispy, but that's okay, guys. 99% of the briskets I cook them unwrapped all the way through, and I get that bark extra crispy on the outside, and then I soften it in the way that I'm about to show you right now. So as far as temperatures are concerned, I have this meter probe right here, and I also used my Thermapen 1, which again, guys, no one's paying me to say this. This is the best instant read thermometer on the market. I got a link in the description so you guys can get one. They got all kinds of colors, but I trust this more than almost anything that I use, and this was reading extremely accurate to the meter probe that I have, and I used my Thermapen to temp all around this brisket. Again, if I was on my offset, I'm pretty comfortable with temperatures and timing and all that, but in the Weber, I just wanted to make sure. So I just temped all over like a madman and made like 100 holes all over this brisket. At the time that I pulled it, it was temping, the lowest I found was 197 degrees, and the highest was about 200 degrees. And that's all over the point and the flat and all the sides. So I feel comfortable saying I pulled this brisket at about 198, 200 degrees. Now I'm gonna wrap it in about 3/4, maybe a cup of beef tallow that I rendered from the trimmings. And all I'm gonna do, as you're gonna see, is I'm just gonna pour this beef tallow all over the top of this brisket. I'll wrap it up in this foil and I'll leave it on the countertop, which we're outside in the outdoor kitchen. It's about 68 degrees. We just perfect normal temperature. So I'm gonna leave it on the countertop for the next hour, maybe hour and a half, 2 hours max. And that's going to carry this brisket all the way into, at minimum, 203 degrees. It might even carry over more. The lean was temping at about 200 degrees, but I can just feel it. It's not totally there. If I were to keep cooking this lean, guys, it's just gonna dry itself out. I had to gamble a little bit. I had to say I could cook this some more and really get it tender, but the net result is gonna be a super dry brisket. So for me, the way that I like to gauge things is I would take a little bit less tender of a bite if I can maintain a little bit of moisture. So that's what I chose to do. So I'm just saying that to tell you guys, I can feel this and I can just feel that it's not there. But it is what it is. It's okay, guys. We're cooking together and it's all good. Let's get this tallow over top, like so. And man, that really hydrates that bark. Again, I took my bark, passed, done for sure. It is certainly crispy, and it's just gonna really soften itself up inside of this foil. Normally, if I'm cooking brisket in bulk, I wrap them and hold them in foil in the beef towel like you just saw, and I'll let them sit on the countertop minimum 3 hours. Normally, it's like 3 to 4 hours, and I let that temp drop all the way down on its own time. I'm gonna stick this in a warmer. I have a commercial warmer, I have a residential warmer. If you're curious about warmers, I have multiple videos about warmers and resting briskets and the like, but I'm going to stick this in a 140 degree warmer here in about 2 hours, and I'll hold this overnight for about 12 hours. We'll show up tomorrow, we'll slice this. Guys, if you don't have a warmer, don't worry. Just rest it on your countertop for a couple hours, open it up, slice it, eat it. It'll be perfectly fine. But there's just an extra little bit of quality that you get letting this brisket rest. We just hammered this brisket for 8 hours, and you really want to give it time to settle out and relax. So I'm gonna let it do that in the warmer. It's gonna take a nap. It's getting late here. I'll see you guys in the morning when it's time to slice this bad boy. Cheers. Alas, we have a brisket. We have a brisket. I promise you guys the best part of this job is eating brisket at freaking 9 o'clock in the morning. Let's jump into it. It's pretty nippy out here, and so I don't want to leave this nice warm brisket out too long. So I'm just gonna jump right into really what we all care about, which is how did this kettle grill smoked brisket turn out? Oh my. Oh my goodness, guys. It looks really good. The bark is looking really good given it was cooked on a kettle grill, not an offset smoker. It's got the jiggle. Money shot. Oh my goodness. Wow. That's what you want. Wow. Guys, that looks so good. Pat that in like so. And behold. That looks insane, guys. Truly, truly it does. All right, enough talking. Let's pull some slices, huh? I'm just gonna go right down the middle. Oh, yes. Oh my goodness. Wow, guys. Holy mackerel, look at that. I mean, it's just freaking oozing juice out of that. This other side, no squeeze, real time. I'm letting the camera focus real time. I did not add anything on the inside of this. I did not inject this with anything, never done that. Just straight on the kettle grill. Guys, if it tastes as good as it's looking right now, we might have found a freaking winner. Honestly, because I'm most not concerned but curious about how our lean really turned out, I'm just gonna pull a slice out of this lean and we'll see together. Here we go. Come on, focus, focus. Wow. Wow, guys. Oh yeah. Oh my goodness, I have to eat this. I cannot wait. Come to Papa. Oh, yes. Oh my goodness. Guys, now I am starving. And by starving, I mean I could survive like 30 days without eating a single meal, but I'm hungry. It is 9 o'clock in the morning and this is just hitting something different. I'm gonna pan this camera out here in a second so we can look each other in the pearls, but I'm gonna explain to you the flavor that's coming off of this that I've never tasted before, but I have to, oh my, oh my, oh my. Little burn-in chunk right there, we'll save that for later. Let's just pull some slices. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's it. Let's just take this guy right in here. Look at this, check this out. Look at the integrity, look at the grain integrity. It's not mushy, it's not overcooked. I mean, it's just everything you want out of a point slice. Look at the fat, good trim up top, pretty well rendered. I mean, that's hard to beat, guys. Guys, look at that. That is just so hard to beat. A little bite, don't mind if I do. Oh, that's money. Guys, look, I could go on and on about how delicious this brisket was on the kettle grill. Truly, it's mind-blowing. Never done a brisket on a kettle grill. It has this nostalgic, kind of old school barbecue-esque flavor, courtesy of those charcoals being right there, that fat's dripping down, it's doing something in the cook chamber. This truly is a go-to way to do a brisket. If you don't own an offset smoker or all you have is a kettle grill, 100% you can cook great brisket on that bad boy. Took about 7.5 to 8 hours to cook. I ran 225 for most of the cook. Then I started pushing 275. Then the temps just went crazy towards the end at about 300 plus degrees. Wrapped it in foil, tallow, rested it overnight, and the end product, well, you just saw it. There's not much else to say, to be honest with you guys, other than do it. You gotta do it. All right, guys. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give me a subscription if it's not your first time here. As always, if it is your first time here, we ask nothing of you other than to have maximum enjoyment, and I hope you had maximum enjoyment for the duration of this video. As always, love you guys. Big Frizz, meet and greet. Over and out.